Okay.
And
So
they,
so the title of princess isn't just something like we think of in European monarchies where you're born into it and it's a title of privilege,
no,
and it's something you earn in this case.
yes, and just because the tribes that have chiefs, their daughters aren't going to be an Indian princess.
Yeah.
I hear all the time that, oh, my grandmother was an so and so kind of Indian princess,
A Cherokee
or
princess.
I hear that one a lot, or this, or Blackfoot, or this other one, and this other one, and or some Navajo princess. Like, we don't have princesses. What was like, you're probably not even talking about a Native American. And if you are, you're probably talking about someone who was raped.
Yeah.
More
My
often than
family.
not, that's how blood got around, because that was one way that they killed the Indian.
Yep. My family likes to pat themselves on the back a lot for having native blood, and I'm just like, I know all of you, and I'm gonna guess that we haven't changed a lot, and I'm going to put so much money on the fact that that probably wasn't consensual. So you guys can celebrate that if you want. I'm not part of this. Yes, we are
He is
talking about
telling
native
Tom.
babies. I must be heard. I must put my voice in the narrative. Yes, baby, you keep talking.
She has quite strong opinions. She loves Indian music.
It is so cool, but I literally just feel weird about it now because it's just like every time I hear one come up on like my new age radio, I have to stop and go, okay, does this actually mean anything, or was this made by some white person with a drum? And then I feel weird, so I have to like change it.
Okay, so I'll have to send you some stuff later, but yes, we do have. There are a bunch of songs and things that are sacred. They have a specific meaning. They're about something specific, and the whole thing means something.
Yeah.
But then there are also some songs that are just for fun. My mom had a recording from years ago when we were little, and they're singing about Ninja Turtles.
That's amazing. Please send that to me right now. I'm going to need that immediately.
It's on a cassette tape.
Oh, that's okay.
I'd have to take those out and get them transferred, but honestly, those are awesome. My mom used to play those for us all the time because my little brother would not sleep to anything but what he called heya music. So any of our
So
well, when you're like 3,
hey, you know what? It's not like I was saying it.
He
You
was
guys
3
can
and
call
that's
it.
what he said.
You guys can call it whatever you want. That is not even my table.
And, that's what he called it because he was itty bitty. My daughter, when she was itty bitty, that's what she called it. That's not what she calls it now. She calls it power music now.
That is still hilarious. Okay.
But
I'm trying to think of what else we didn't go over because I know there was Native Youth and Suicide. Your story.
over-sexualization.
What?
Over-sexualization.
And murdered, missing indigenous women.
Yeah, those were the things that we had finished before. And then we were going to talk about my Indian name.
Oh, yes. Okay. Putting my hands up. Okay, so why don't you tell us some more about your native name?
Okay, so my Omaha name is De Sinde Wau, and that means Buffalo Woman. Mm-hmm. And recently, within like a week ago, I was actually talking to my dad, which I haven't had a whole lot of contact and stuff with my dad and his side of the family, which is my Omaha side, which is actually where I'm enrolled in the Omaha tribe of Nebraska.
Okay.
And we're talking about our Omaha names, and he was telling me about his name, and his name means yellowtail. And he was telling me about how his brother's name is along the lines of he who sees a lot. And he was telling me about where it came from and the fact that our names are said backwards.
Really?
A lot of our words, not all of them, but a lot of the words are said backwards, like the language. And but our words are said backwards. And I was like, oh, okay, because I didn't know this. And I asked him, so would my name translate to woman buffalo? And he goes, no, actually, your name, what its actual meaning is, because Buffalo Woman is my name, but what its actual, like, the literal translation is woman of the buffalo.
Oh, cool. Sorry, I was giggling at your child screaming in the background.
She is talking to one of her flamingos. It's a stuffed animal.
Little baby. You talk to your flamingo. You do
anyway.
You.
Anyway, so my dad was telling me where part of their names came from, and that was what his dad and his grandpa told him.
Yeah.
And so what their names came from, because our names come from the buffalo. Yeah. And my dad's name came from the one that with the pack of buffalo when they're going, that stays back at the end of the herd for anyone who is the older ones or the ones that are sick, and when they start to stray off. And his job was to go and to help them to keep up, to not be alone, so that the wolves don't come and get them. And his brother's name came, his brother, his name was, I don't remember how to say their names, because I've only heard them the one time, was basically, he was the lookout to look for things that were coming after them. Mm-hmm. So that's where their names came from, or along the lines of where the meaning came from. And my dad was telling me, because I know how the Ho-Chunk, the Winnebago Ho-Chunk, get their names, what they do in order to go to get their name. Because I grew up with my mother's tribe, and that's my mother's tribe. And my dad was telling me that theirs is a little bit different. And not only do you take the tobacco in order to ask them to do this for you, because you have to gift them to the tobacco. Mm-hmm. There was this whole ceremony that you have to go through where early in the morning you end up going to them and you cook them breakfast. And this is at like 4:00 in the morning, because at the end of this, they'll go out and be talking, and they'll end up talking with the birds, and the birds are going to take your name to the creator, because when you pass on and you go on your journey to meet the creator, which depending on and it varies between your different tribes on what they believe and how this happens, but you go on your journey, and we believe that it takes 4 years for you to finish your journey. And when you get there, the creator will ask you your name. He will have a name for you, and that is the name that he will call you. So when I pass on and when I meet the creator, when he talks to me, he will not say Ayame or my birth name. He will call me Desinde Wau. And when my ancestors speak to me, when I greet them, when I get there, then that is what they will call me.
I have goosebumps. That is beautiful. I have a hard-on for spirituality, I think. I think all religion is beautiful. We just misuse it. But anyway, that's just a side note for you. So these aren't, I know we talked a little bit about this in some of the other sections, but they're not just something you pick. It's something with a lot of deliberate thought and process and history and tradition behind it.
Yes. So you can't just go on the internet or click one of those little find your Indian name kind of games, and it just picks up some random names and gives it to you, and it gives you a word or a made-up word. Some of them are made up and some of them are actual words of random languages, random native languages, and some are made. And it gives you some of the meanings are actual meanings and some of the meanings are they made that up. That might be a real word, but the meaning is made up. And they're like, this is your Indian name. And then everyone's like, oh, this is my Indian name. That is not what happens. There is a whole process, and there's specific people in your tribe that you have to ask or in your family in order to have this happen. You can't just or go grab a book and be like, I'm going to call myself
this.
Shoes look pretty. And be like, that's my name and it's a thing. No, it's not. And doing that is extremely offensive and demeaning. And you're not so much making fun of us but you are playing at what is in a big part of our culture with a lot of us. So whether you mean to or not, you are pretty much you're being racist.
That's the word we're going to use because that's what it is. Don't have to softball that one in there. That is racist to do.
Yeah. Goes along with the mascots. You dress up like the Redskins and you paint your face red. You are not honoring us. You are being racist. It's like doing blackface. That's not a thing you want to do. And you definitely don't want to come up to a native and be like, I'm honoring you.
No.
You should be honored that I would pretend to be you.
Here has the same view.
Well, the thing with the Native Americans and our culture and everything is we went through very recently a very large genocide with our culture. Not just, and there were actual mass killings of us, but our culture, we were beaten for being Native American, for looking Native American, for speaking our languages, and just pretty much being a person because we weren't seen as real people.
Yeah.
So there is still a lot of pain that comes with that.
Yeah.
And because it is something that we are still fighting. Extremely fighting.
Looking at you, J.K. Rowling.
Where a lot of people still don't see how this is a problem. Why are you upset? It's nothing that happened years ago. No, this is happening now. It started years ago, but it hasn't stopped.
Yeah.
So, no, don't do it. It's not going to be okay with us.
I hear the phrase.
We are still fighting in order to have our culture. Even my tribes are fighting in order to regain our culture from our elders.
Yeah.
Our elders are dying.
Yeah.
Pretty soon, we aren't going to have anybody who spoke as a child, who learned these things when they were little. We're trying really hard to regain all of that, to connect with our ancestors. This is something we're doing with a lot of intent. And personally, it pisses me off when I see these costumes. I mean, it's...
The phrase I hear a lot is cultural appropriation is violence. It's a form of violence.
Yes,
and
it is.
I tried to explain this to somebody and they just absolutely would not accept it. Do you want to elaborate a little bit?
It's a form of violence because it tears at our being. You are assaulting who we are with this.
Yeah.
It's not just pretend.
Mm-hmm.
You are essentially assaulting our culture when you're doing this.
Yeah.
You're basically making fun of us.
Yeah.
You're pretending we're not real people, like
Mm-hmm.
we're some figure that no longer exists,
Mm-hmm.
that is only in the past.
Only in the history books, if that.
And I do see other natives occasionally who will dress their little kids up in these costumes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard knowing that a lot of us don't have that connection with our tribes, with our culture, that we are so disconnected from everything that forced us out of who we were, that we're doing this to ourselves sometimes.
Yeah.
So, and as we're gaining our stuff back, our culture, our language, our history, it's happening less and less,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of us are finally remembering who our people were,
Mm-hmm.
because we're being allowed to actually know that now.
I don't know if I mentioned this before, but one statistic that literally blows my mind to this day is that in the US, um, Native Americans were only allowed to teach in school in their own language starting in the 90s. In the 90s, people. I was born in the 90s. Okay,
Yes.
go.
Uh, anytime before that, you could have got beaten for it.
Yep. So this is all. So we've tried so hard for years and years and years to strip indigenous people of their identities, and now that they still exist simply through the efforts, only the efforts, sometimes the lives of indigenous people keeping this alive, the only reason we as white people even know what these things are is because indigenous people have kept them alive at the expense of their own lives. And to think that we now can access them is the height of selfishness.
Yeah, it's so fashionable nowadays to be part Indian, but really it's not. My grandmother always told me that the biggest nation in the world were the Wanabes. And I was like, what the hell's a Wanabe? And she's like, it's a wannabe, because everyone wanna be Indian. And I
Oh,
was like, that makes sense.
earlier, I don't remember. I will cut this if we don't. But um, what would you say to someone who thinks that, spiritually speaking, anything that connects you to the divine, quote, 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 is available for people to use, and that anybody can just, like, if they identify with some of your cultural observances, that because the divine isn't one thing, that we all can use it. I heard somebody say that to me.
That's,
Any connection to the divine is not racialized. That's what I heard.
I would say that's wrong, because our connection to, quote, the divine, which for us is our creator,
Mm-hmm.
is very culturally sound.
Yes.
Our entire culture is very much built around this.
Yeah.
So way we it has to do with the way we cook and everything that gets put into that, into our clothes, into the way we speak, into the way we pretty much do everything.
Mm-hmm.
Our culture is tied into all of our spiritual things, which come from the creator.
Yeah.
Our entire
So,
culture is connected that way. So just to say it's an open thing and anyone can have it. Anyone can have their connection to their spiritual person, however they want to. But you can't just go into any culture and be like, you guys believe stuff and I believe stuff and it's similar. So I'm just going to say that what you have is mine and it's going to be okay.
Spiritual appropriation.
Yes, that is a thing. And no, it's not okay. Stop doing it. Just don't do it.
Knock it off.